Let's go to Jim DeMint now. Jim DeMint, formerly the former senator from South Carolina, and then with the Heritage Foundation for, I think, 4 years or so, and made a real impact there. Jim DeMint, welcome to the program. How are you, sir?
Glenn, I'm doing really well, and it's good to be back on your show.
Thank you, sir. Jim, I know you're such a Southern gentleman. You're not going to want to, say anything bad about anybody, and I'm not looking for the bad stuff. But can you tell us what happened at Heritage? Because there's been these stories that you were too conservative, that you were taking it too conservative. I don't know what that means for the Heritage Foundation, but trying to take it too conservative, and they wanted to be more GOP centric.
Well, Glenn, frankly, I don't know, the board just decided they wanted to do something different in the future. And frankly, I feel like the Lord knows what he's doing. And where I am right now, I realize that I'm in a place where I can make a much bigger difference. There's some great people at Heritage, but I'm ready to leave that chapter behind and get back to work on two fronts. I realize, and I'm sure you see it from where you sit, that we can't just work in one area. It's not enough just to be a senator or elect a senator. We have to do a lot of things if we're going to stop this out-of-control federal government. And the two things I'm going to continue to work with conservatives on the Hill and try to equip them and support them, because, as you mentioned when you started the show just a minute ago, is a lot of times it's just one or two people working to try to do the right thing, and the system tries to take them apart. But I've also realized that no matter what happens, no matter who we elect, Congress is never going to stop spending, that they're going to keep spending and creating debt until we have some kind of crisis or meltdown. And our founders knew that that was a possibility. That they gave us the fire alarm on the wall where it's to break the glass and pull the lever. And that's in Article 5 of the Constitution, where they said the states could come together and propose amendments to the Constitution. In this case, we have to get the states to force the federal government to have fiscal restraint, to limit its jurisdiction, and hopefully even to term limit members of Congress and maybe even the judiciary.
Okay, so you are now going to the Convention of States. What role of Convention of States project are you going to play there?
I'm what they call a senior advisor. I'll be working with Tom Coburn and a good team around the country to work with state legislators, because the secret here is to get 34 states to pass essentially the same call to convention. This is not a constitutional convention. There's nothing about a free-for-all to rewrite the Constitution. Article 5 is clear that states can propose amendments. And we want to propose particular amendments that will help force the federal government to not only balance its budget, but limit taxes, but also limit what it can do. Because the 10th Amendment is clear that whatever is not prescribed to the federal government in the Constitution should be left to the states and the people, and the federal government has just run all over that. And so I look at my fight as I'm just fighting on two fronts. I'm not going to give up on helping conservatives, and we've started a new nonprofit to do that. But I'm working with the Convention of the States, hoping that the states will call a convention to propose amendments to limit the power and the spending of the federal government.
So, Jim, the Convention of the States, I think, has new life to it. And a lot of it is coming from places like California, of all places, to where liberals are saying, the government's out of control. Yeah, because now your guy isn't in control. And California had a real movement to actually secede from the Union. I think this is a real opportunity, but it also could be used to exploit the framework of Article 5. Are you reaching out to the people on the left who are more libertarian-minded, and are you concerned at all about a hijacking from the traditional left?
Glenn, that is one of the arguments that opponents of this use, but frankly, there is literally no chance that you're going to have a convention that proposes some kind of crazy amendment that in 38 states ratify. I feel much more comfortable in that check and balance than I do with what the courts could do in Washington or even what Congress can do. But you mentioned something that's very insightful, actually, because liberals, once they understand this concept, like it, at least a lot of them do, because they understand that what we're trying to do is not tell people what to do or to tell California they have to do something and South Carolina does something else. What we're talking about is where things are decided. And that's the difference here. The thing that creates disunity all over the country now is you've got so many things being decided in Washington about what we should do and how we should live our lives. What we need to do is let states and local communities and people themselves make more of their own decisions. As long as power keeps gravitating to Washington, the more, I think, disunity we're going to have in America.
So let me take this now. I went for the liberals. Let me take this to conservatives. Do you think that the conservatives fell asleep on Article 5 after Trump was elected? And has that changed?
No, I don't think so, because I believe most of what President Trump is trying to do are things that we agree with. But we see that ever since he was elected, they have made this big deal of Russia. If Russia did anything, that's on Obama. I mean, Obama was supposed to be watching our country and our and security systems and stuff like that. But I think what we've seen is, despite the strong personality of Trump, and he's put some good people in the agencies, they're still making it almost impossible for him to get anything done. And even with Republican majorities, we see in the budgets they pass that we're going to keep spending and keep growing the government. Hopefully we can have some small successes. But I don't think the country has fallen asleep. And I see this as a mission that the grassroots, that folks who are involved with the Tea Party, who are discouraged now, that people can see this is a very focused idea, that if we come together, this is maybe the only way we can restrain an out-of-control federal government.
Jim, who are you more disappointed with, Congress or the presidency? Because I have to tell you, Congress is, in my opinion, absolutely shameful the way they're acting and spending, and the way they dealt with Obamacare is mind-boggling. Yeah,
I agree. No, I'm disappointed in Congress. I frankly think the Trump administration has done a lot of good things that they can do on their own. But they're in a box canyon. Everybody's shooting at them, including some Republicans. You go over to the White House, it's just surrounded by tents of media people who every day are looking for something they're doing wrong. But one of the things I want to do on the Hill is work with conservatives to try to make them more effective, because once you get there, whether you're in the House or the Senate, you're in your own little foxhole. Everybody's firing at you. Every time you try to do something right, they try to throw you off a committee or to get you back home with your constituents. We can do a lot better uniting and equipping conservatives once they're elected. And that's what I'm going to try to do, along with a small team, is to get them to work more closely together and try to protect those who are trying to do the right thing.
More with Jim DeMint, who's now one of the senior advisors of the Convention of States project. We're in Texas, Jim. I know 12 states now have called for the Convention of States. 32 other states are considering it this year. I didn't think Texas was going to, I mean, first I thought it was insane that Texas wouldn't pass it. Then I thought, oh my gosh, the Texas legislature, they're just not going to do it. They eventually did. How are the other states shaping up? And did Texas make a difference in momentum?
Texas always makes a difference. That's one of the reasons we're working now with Texas on school choice. The more they set a pattern for the country in a positive way, the opposite of what California often does. But it's the grassroots strength of the conservative movement in Texas that made the difference with your legislature there, because there were a number of people trying to block it or hide from it. And that's what's happening around the country. The Convention of States project is building a grassroots network of millions of people who come to understand that this may be the only way to save our country. And so they're engaged in every state. And then during the next legislative cycle, you're going to probably see 10 or 20 states in play with a lot of grassroots support. So that's what I'm going to do all over the country, call on people who've been trying to elect good people, who've worked in the Tea Party, who've been active, to come and help us call this Article 5 Convention of the States.
And it is, I really truly believe this is the fix. This is the founders' fix. I wish we would have thought of it when the Tea Party was roaring, because we could have really gotten things done. But we need people to be involved in the Convention of States. The things that you want to and believe you can get done if the convention is called.
It's in three categories. And the thing that interests me most about how we're doing it with the Convention of the State project is we're not proposing the specific amendments, because we found, like, for instance, if you're working on term limits, then everybody who wants term limits is going to disagree whether it's 6, 8, or 12 years. Yeah. But what we're doing, there are three areas that we will pass amendments that restrict fiscally what the federal government can do to borrow money. Generally, it will deal with a balanced budget, but also tax and spending restrictions. The other is jurisdiction and authorization. It will restrict what the federal government can do on the regulatory front, on what it can do, for instance, controlling education, health care, give states much more latitude there. The third subject area is to put term limits on federal officials, congressmen, senators, and perhaps even federal judges.
What do you say to people who say, and I've got about 30 seconds for this answer, what do you say to people who say, you put term limits on, then it's going to be the bureaucrats that are running everything?
That's just not true. Every time you have a new wave of people come in, they bring a lot of their own people. They want to get something done. They know they have a short period of time, and they're not going to put up with much of this. Let's do it after the next election. So it's a way to clean the place up and get people to think about the country rather than a political career.
It is always an honor to talk to you, Jim. Thank you so much for your service to the country. Thanks for what you did at Heritage Foundation. And now, joining the Convention of States project. If you want to get involved,
sign the petition at cosaction.com and get as many of your friends and family to do the same. With your full address, your state legislators will know that you really are their constituents in their district. Our success depends on you, so we're inviting you to be part of history. Let's invoke the constitutional solution that's as big as the problem.